Welcome to the workshop meeting of your Board of Trustees in September. Before we get to the workshop meeting, though, we have a Board of Local Improvements meeting, which we'll call to order now. Clerk Fitzgerald, may we have the roll call, please?
Certainly, Madam President. Trustee Hansen?
Here.
Trustee Timick?
Here.
Trustee Allen?
Here.
Trustee Rudolph?
Here.
Trustee Sifferman?
Here.
Trustee Tyrrell?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. And then before we get to the business, will you all please rise with us to recite the Pledge of Allegiance to honor our nation's heroes and the men and women in uniform. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So the Board of Local Improvements is tasked with overseeing draws that are requested for public improvements in the Timber Trail area. It's been almost a year since we've had such a request, but tonight we do. So I'll hand it over to Trustee Rudolph from here.
Thank you, President Gallagher. First, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the November 27th, 2017 voting meeting.
I'll second.
Okay. All
in favor?
Aye.
There's one correction to the minutes. President Gallagher replacing President Rodiger in there.
Oh, at the very end. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
But with that, aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So that will be noted and corrected.
Thank you.
All right. And then I'd also like to make a motion to approve disbursement request number 80 in the amount of $187,566.36 from the Village of Western Springs for expenditures related to the Timber Trails development as presented and as President Gallagher mentioned.
And I'll second that as well.
Any discussion?
I had a couple questions on it, and it relates to sort of the documentation that was included in our packet. I just wanted to make sure I fully understood it. One of the memos is page 8 of our stuff. It's kind of a spreadsheet looking thing that has the history of the draws. But it says that the current line of credit and security balance is about $1,856,000 and some change. And the estimated cost to complete is $768,000 or so at the bottom of the spreadsheet after this draw that we're about to discuss. The difference, the $1,856,000 versus the $768,000, why is there such a big difference? Or is that inclusive of the water tower, or I just didn't understand that gap?
You not only have a holdback for the water tower improvement, you also have an escalator. 25% of the project costs, I believe, is the number that your line of credit, your security is supposed to be, over and above the actual cost to complete. And that number has been adjusted from time to time as draws are made. The village engineer readjusts the required amount of security to match, what's required in terms of the amount of security, and syncs it up with the what projects are left to be done and what those anticipated costs are going forward.
Okay, and so in this just holistically big picture, after 10 years and 80 draws, is this like the last list, for all the public improvements that they're doing, that it would be completed? Is that sort of the vision, and kind of maybe what's the timeline? Is that?
I think it's safe to say they're coming down the home stretch in terms of completing public improvements. The village engineer's office can talk about it, but they have to complete the phase 2 public improvements. They have to deal with punch list items in phase 1 and phase 2. We still haven't accepted the roads because we're not going to accept the roads until all the construction is done or close to the end of the construction. So we are accepting roads that are in a solid condition and not roads that are beat up by construction traffic. And you do have a rather larger ticket item, the water tower.
Okay.
In terms of the build out of unit 2 and the completion of the punch list, we could have Marty and the engineer's office comment on that.
Sure. I think Karen Drusik summed up the basics of it, that as you go out there, you see more construction happening. And the safeguard is we don't want to accept anything that's likely to be damaged in the near future by, concrete trucks, delivery trucks of all different sorts. So that's why the number's coming down. So I don't know the specifics. Tom might have, Tom Adamczyk from JJB is here in place of Jeff. So if there's specifics, you might have them.
Well, thank you. I guess I generally get that, but just, is this like end of the year, into 2019? Do we have sort of an idea, just like broad idea of when this might be done with? I mean, it sounds like it's going well, but I'm just sort of curious when.
I don't have an end date that I
Oh,
know
you
of.
mean the end of the Phase 2 public improvements?
Well, when this is done, like done.
The project?
Yeah.
Is there a phase 3?
No end date, yeah.
No end date.
Well, in most developments, it's open-ended for a little while, but to be very conservative, and Attorney Drusik and I haven't talked about this, typically you keep that money for, a year afterwards, just to
For
watch
punch
things. I don't
items.
know if the annexation agreement says anything otherwise, but I would recommend it to be a conservative approach before, Public Works and Municipal Services are taking it over and having to fix things. You'd want to see how everything settles out after all the homes are built and the last nail is hammered down to accept it formally.
Yeah, and there's a requirement in our code to retain 25% of the of the value of the security even after the public improvements are done, in order to make sure all the punch list items are done, sort of like a retention. And the developer can, from time to time, ask or request that the security be reduced under our code to match what they feel is a true-up of the real number they have to retain. Our developer is not at that point. And our developer just finished installing Flag Creek Lane, which is where a lot of the townhomes and some single-family are going to be constructed, in the near future, this year, next year. There's still quite a number of Unit 2 lots that are undeveloped. I mean, he has an inventory, and back when he took the project over, everything was tied to velocity of sales, and he had a 5-year, build out, estimate at that time, and he's been at it a couple, 2-3 years. I mean, he could be done in 2 years, he could be done in another 5 or 6, but there's nothing that holds him to a certain completion date. It's really the market that's going to drive how quickly he sells. But with the building of Flag Creek Lane, in terms of roads, he is done building almost all of the roads except for a couple cul-de-sacs down in, closer to Flag Creek that are adjacent to this Flag Creek lane that he just poured. And if you go take a look at it, there's a couple, 2 or 3 extensions to the east where the cul-de-sacs will be put in when those homes are ready to go. So there's still a couple pads that need to be poured, but for the most part, the infrastructure is much closer to being completed than not. But the real end date is it's somewhat a moving target.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
Yep.
Any other discussion, questions?
Okay, I think then we're.
Did we do a
roll call
vote?
roll call to
May we have a roll call?
to approve that disbursement number 80?
Trustee Hansen?
Aye.
Trustee Timmick?
Aye.
Trustee Allen?
Aye.
Trustee Rudolph?
Aye.
Trustee Sifferman?
Aye.
Trustee Tyrrell?
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our business under the BOLI. May we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. We'll move on now to our regular meeting. Clerk Fitzgerald, can you please confirm that nobody snuck out while Attorney Drusik was talking?
Confirmed, all present.
Thank you. All right. So we'll move on to citizen comments. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board this evening? If so, we open it up to the public. Please, come on up.
Yes, Jerry Olszewski from Western Avenue. Question I had pertaining to the expansion of the tollway. All those spaces that we're losing that's revenue for the village, the parking spaces. Are they picking up the tab for that, along with other things that they're doing, with Springbrook Park and so forth? If you don't have those spaces to sell anymore, you're losing revenue.
You're right. I'll let our village manager, Veltme, answer that, please.
You are correct. You hear? We are working on putting together an intergovernmental agreement with the tollway, with all the items that we have out there. For instance, the use of the right-of-way, whatever easements they are going to need for that, anything that pertains to our loss or so, we're going to try to recapture that. So we are working on every single month. We have a working meeting with them. They are coming out, sending us information about what's going to be happening there and so forth, and we are working closely with them.
Okay,
So
because that, in reading in the papers and everything else, that was never addressed. It showed that we were losing 70 some odd spaces.
75 parking spaces there.
Okay, so-
But they will be going back after the construction
Well,
is
sure,
completed.
but during the meantime, you're losing
Right.
it. right?
Correct,
Right.
correct, yes. So that is
And
something
you're
that they
really
understand.
bending for them to do all this project.
We are bending to them, unfortunately, but it's coming through and I can't stop it. So, but I'm going to try to make it as the best as possible for our
We
village.
just need to get what we're
Correct.
losing and
Yes,
for the disruption and everything else that's going to be going on.
you are correct, yes. That's the way we
Absolutely.
feel.
Yes, and so, and I can tell you, we have had those discussions with the tollway, and they have expressed an interest in making sure that we are made whole, and even better than whole throughout this whole process, because they realize what a disruption it is, and they have expressed often that they want to be a good neighbor, so we will hold them to it. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, then, moving on. Having read the agenda tonight, does any trustee have an addition or deletion to tonight's agenda? Then we'll go right to our consideration of agenda items, to our committee reports, starting with Public Works and Water. Trustee Allen.
Thank you, President Gallagher. In your packet is the latest version of the capital project summary, which we went over in a little bit of detail, or in reasonably good detail last meeting. But to comment on a couple things with it, the two roadway improvements, two main roadway improvements, I should say, on Lawn and Johnson are still continuing. And the Rose Garden is going very well as well, too. Relating to the IEPA loan, in your packet is an amendment from Baxter and Woodman to an existing contract for $4,100. And Director Super, correct me if I'm wrong, we discussed this last week at our committee level. I would characterize it more as a shifting of when these costs were to occur. It is some engineering work to connect the water main, the new water main that'll go in for well number 5, to the water treatment plant. So all along we knew we had to do this. It was just when and sort of what project it made most sense to do it on. So what was determined is it would make some sense to do it now, to get some of that engineering done now, and that's why you see an amendment. We voted at the committee level to forward this for the board, and then also to be on the, on an omnibus at our next meeting for approval.
Okay, we'll put that on the omnibus.
Okay, and then the other item, one other point on this. There's a pretty good memo in here from Baxter and Woodman that talks about the project, but just to clarify, it does talk about well number 1. We've not officially said as a board that we would decommission well number 1 after well number 5 is all up and fully tested. That is definitely where we are headed, though. Exactly what would happen to that structure that's by Wolf and Burlington by the train station, that needs to be determined. But again, the vision would be for that to be capped and shut off and not needed again. But we have not yet officially voted on that as a group, and that would come at the very, very end of the project after well number 5 is fully up and tested and so forth. So
Yeah, that makes sense to me, but I think everyone here is in agreement that that's where we're going with well number 1.
Right.
Trustee Allen, is there any reason not to do that?
I don't think there is any reason.
From an
I think, in
engineering
fact, we
point of-
probably can't, and Director Super can say, is because of the connections that we're going to be going into the water treatment plant. Because remember, well number 1 can't go through the the 2 RO trains. I don't know, Director Supert, is Trustee Terrell's possibility even, or idea even a possibility to have well number 1 still maintained?
The short answer is we don't really know yet. We don't know if the IEPA will require us to decommission as part of the well number 5 completion. One of the things we'll be looking at as part of this engineering is getting the well 5 into the plant is, do we use the outside piping connection that brings it into the building from well number 1 there, start there, and then do some additional piping inside to get it to the RO system. So we'll have to look at all of those different options once we kind of get the engineering up and running.
But I think it's a good question, though. But the plan would be to decommission.
So when that was capped, that would be then pretty much taken to ground level, and we could redevelop that corner as well?
Well, that was one idea, is to actually take down that hut, I guess is maybe a better way of describing it. But I don't know if we've really reached that, if we can just put a cap over it or seal it, or how, what would be required on
From the
manager
IEPA,
developing.
yes, we're not sure as of yet.
Okay.
We would have to check with them. We would have to have their blessing on that.
But I agree with you structurally, there'd be no reason to have that building and have something to maintain like that there,
sure.
so.
Yeah.
And we're not talking a huge area, it's maybe like a size of a car or roughly a minivan maybe?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at, the building itself is probably 12 by 12 feet, so right in that area. Once the actual well casing pipe, you're looking at maybe an 18-inch hole. So if we do have to cap it and what the IEP allows, there may be some surface level sort of maybe plug. You fill the final well in with concrete, and as at the surface level, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet.
Okay, thanks.
But you guys have asked a couple good questions. We also, just to clarify in this, we've not yet determined the cost of the retrofits to the water treatment plant, correct, to house this well number 5 coming in. That's part of what this engineering study will help evaluate. So the numbers that we've talked about for well number 5, it's expected not to be a hugely major item, but we're still trying to iron that out. Okay. One of the projects on our capital project that we've been tracking now for a while is the Ridgewood Oaks Detention Basin. And this one, the story on this is that the Homeowners Association is still supportive of it. There's some legal documents that need to be prepared and voted on and signed off in the whole bit. It has not yet gone out to bidding, and consequently, we don't believe that will be done by the end of this year, that will bleed into 2019. My understanding is some of the construction can actually happen over the winter because it's mostly deep below ground. But they're working to try to preserve as many trees as possible in the whole bit. One of the things we've also talked about is having a meeting with the Homeowners Association where some amount of elected officials are there too, just to be supportive. This project has gone on for a bit, and also just to kind of keep the communication lines open with them. But staff and village attorney are working to try to get that ironed out as quickly as possible and to go out to bid sometime this fall. Correct, Director Supert?
That's the goal.
Okay. All right. That concludes, unless there's any questions on the capital projects, that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Trustee Allen. Moving on to the Properties and Rec Committee, Trustee Hansen.
Thank you, President Gallagher. The first item on the agenda is a recommendation from the staff and the Properties and Recreation Committee to approve the engineering proposal that is in your packets. This proposal is for the engineering design services from J.J. Bennis and Associates in an amount not to exceed $8,000, and it is for the design engineering of Phase 2 of the grant that we received last year from the West Suburban Mass Transit District. And this will take place at the northwest corner of Burlington and Grand in an effort to align with our strategic goals of implementing green solutions in our community. We will be installing multiple electric vehicle charging stations and a bicycle shelter to cover the bike rack that is currently in place there. So the grant was originally for $175,000, and last year Phase 1 was completed during the roadway program, and that included the resurfacing of the commuter spaces on the north side of Burlington Avenue from Grand Avenue to Central. And then they also constructed at Grand and Burlington a bike rack and an ADA compliant sidewalk. So the total cost of Phase 1 was $80,758.60. And now the remaining $80,583 of the grant funds has been budgeted for Phase 2. But what we will be voting on the omnibus is the design engineering plans in an amount not to exceed $8,000.
Do we know the proposed timing for that? I've been hearing some feedback from residents, not least the gentleman this evening, about the parking situation and just kind of the whole downtown with Foxford and the loss of space. Will that interfere with any of our parking, or will things be kind of some of the other projects that we have going on completed?
I will let Director Supert answer that.
Yeah, we don't anticipate with this project any major overlap or interference between what's going on. This specific Phase 2 is going to be isolated to really to that corner area. So the bike shelter is going to be really in the pedestrian section right on the corner there of Grand and Burlington. The proposed electric vehicle charging stations will impact probably the first 2 to 4 spots. There might be some additional spots that are taken up as part of the construction and installation process, but we're not looking at any significant concrete or asphalt work as part of this Phase 2.
How long would the construction last?
You're probably looking at about a month worth of work total.
Is that going to come after Foxford? The Burlington spots in front of Foxford would be open?
I don't know what the timing is on the Foxford.
Well, this, Director Supert, will not impact any of the parking, will it?
You might have some temporary, when stuff is actually going in for certain days here and there, but it wouldn't be closed continuously for
any
a
length of
1 month
time.
period.
Right.
No.
So this is the 2 spots right across the street from Starbucks.
Right.
Yes.
Correct, yeah.
It'll disrupt Starbucks parking pretty much, that's all.
Right,
you know.
those,
Yeah.
the
First
spaces
couple-
But
that
it
have
won't take too long
4-hour
to
parking.
install.
But it'll
right?
take-
I believe one of those spots there is identified either as Metro or BNSF parking. And
Yeah.
I think
Right.
just to kind of shift that down to open up 2 of those spots. So
And-
one of those is not a commuter parking spot at present.
Is this project going to be completed in 2018?
The goal is to complete it by the end of this year.
Yes, okay. Any other questions? Okay.
So the spots on the north side, those have already,
They were done last
They
year.
were done.
Yes.
and the shoe fly and the 294, it doesn't get that
No,
far
That's
east.
further
No.
west.
That's
Much
further
further
west.
west,
Yeah.
Okay. Right, okay.
Okay. Next is just an update on the village's beautiful new butterfly garden in Spring Rock Park. Thanks to the efforts of Mr. Jack Hagan, who you recall presented the idea to us last spring, I believe it was. And he coordinated this project with many volunteers and the Western Springs Park District in getting this up and running, and it is very pretty. If you have not seen it, I encourage you to go visit it. And the village has submitted the site to Monarch Watch to be certified as a Monarch Way Station. So at another meeting in the future, we hope to formally recognize and thank Mr. Hagan for his efforts. The next item in the capital is the capital summary report in your packet. Just an update on the East Train platform. We're very close to having it finished. I feel like I say that every meeting, but it is beautiful also. So I would encourage everyone, when you're on the train, to take a look or just walk it yourself. The water feature is being tested, correct?
It is correct. It is officially fully activated. We have a training that we are scheduling with our staff here probably sometime this week.
Okay, I was down in Frankfurt today and I noticed they also have a water feature welcoming you to their town. So anyhow, that is moving along, and we do hope to schedule a grand opening with President Gallagher and other village officials in the near future. So also on that capital summaries list is the fire station HVAC information. They had a pre-construction meeting last week, and work is expected to start on that in late October, correct?
Correct.
Yes. And that's really just FYI. Also FYI is the historic water tower replacement door project is moving along. I think I mentioned last meeting that the door will be a single door, and we are working with the Historical Society to have it be, correct with the building and everything. And then the next item I have is the Wolf Road Bike Path Update. James J. Bennis and Associates has completed the tree removal plan, inventory, and path alignment from adjustments that were made, identified over the summer. The removal plan and the supporting documents have been submitted to the Forest Preserve District of Cook County for review. And the current path location and layout has been agreed upon by the Forest Preserve District of Cook County. The village layout, and the village has received a letter from the Forest Preserve District stating that they are rescinding their request for the expanded project area. This would be the area north of the bridge and everything. So the village will be presenting to the Federal Highway Authority on September 18th the letter saying that the Forest Preserve District has rescinded their request. So that will happen next week. And we're still waiting, though, for the Forest Preserve District of Cook County to provide a letter of support or co-sponsorship for this bike path and a draft IGA for co-sponsorship of the maintenance and other items. So there's a meeting next week, I believe it is, on September 18th?
Yes, that's the Federal Highway Administration meeting.
Okay, to present the update on the project.
Yeah, and then we're also in the process of just scheduling a kind of a project check-in meeting with the Forest Preserve District themselves.
Right, okay. And I believe that concludes my report.
Thank you. So as far as that letter goes, Matt, what's taking so long for them to?
Regarding the co-sponsorship?
Yes.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's the Forest.
Because you want that before the 18th, right?
That would be ideal. If we could bring that letter to the Federal Highway Administration, that was an item that they brought up to us and recommended the Forest Preserve to do at our meeting with them last fall.
And what about Cook County Highways? Should they also?
We're actually not in their right-of-way because of the adjustments that we've done. We don't anticipate being in any of their right-of-way.
So a letter of support from them would not?
It wouldn't hurt, but we don't, the Federal Highway Administration was not looking for that.
Okay.
And we haven't pursued that really because of some of the other issues that we've been focusing on.
Thank you.
And I'm just curious, who does provide the letter? Is it their board that has to approve this, the Forest Preserve District Board? Or
I would believe it would either be the board or.
Is it like?
I don't know, actually.
Okay.
Who would actually be the signatory on the letter? I don't know.
We will contact the Forest Preserve District this week, so.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Trustee Hansen.
You're welcome, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the Finance Committee, Trustee Rudolph.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Just in your packet, just a note on page 39 is the first draft of the fiscal 2019 budget schedule. We'll be hearing more about that in our meetings to come, including currently targeted a draft of the fiscal 19 budget at the end of November, and our final adoption then at the end of December. In the meantime, as you see on the schedule, many meetings to be held, and our Finance Committee will also be meeting next Thursday, the 13th, and we'll be talking about it at that time as well. And with that, I have no further report.
Wonderful.
Any questions on the budget schedule?
I do for Village Manager Balcony. It says in here the corporate plan, or maybe Director Turi, does that include this infrastructure plan that we've been talking about from strategic planning, that sort of the 5-year?
That would be in the budget, so.
We are trying to incorporate the strategic plans within the budget, so we are going to go out 3 to 5 years to project capital as well as revenue and operations.
So with the budget, we would also get this sort of 3 to 5 year view of?
Yes.
It'd be done about the same time.
Right. You can't approve out years because we only approve an annual budget, but you can see what we're going to be doing. So it's a forecast for the next 3 to 4 or 5 years.
I think we're saying the same thing. This is the infrastructure plan that we would post for the residents to kind of get an idea of where we're heading with our infrastructure, over that 3 to 5 year time horizon, right?
No, we're talking, the infrastructure plan is a physical layout of the streets and infrastructure.
He's referring to like the capital outlook report that we've been working on as a draft.
Oh, okay, that part, yes, but the actual physical streets, you'll approve on an annual basis, what you're gonna do.
This was more just to give the residents, as Trustee Allen had said, the overview of sort of what we were thinking in terms of the approach and over the next few years.
Yes, the approach, yes, but
Yep.
not the actual.
Not the specifics.
Not the specific streets.
So we are working on that. I have a draft of that plan completed that we're working on. I'm hoping to present some draft of that to the Infrastructure Commission, who's meeting later this week. I don't know exactly how the timing will line up with the rest of the budget documents, because it is going to be in some ways kind of its own document. designed to be a little bit more digestible, in layman's terms for what we're trying to convey in it. So, but yes, I would imagine that it will mostly be working hand in hand with the rest of the budget process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No further report.
All right, thank you very much, Trustee Rudolph. Moving on to Public Health and Safety, Trustee Sipperman.
Thank you, President Gallagher. There are two matters that are advanced for our review and consideration coming from the Public Health and Safety Committee, met on September the 5th. The first is an announcement. You have materials included in your packet regarding Illinois Rail Safety Week that will be featured September 23rd through the 29th. This comes out of, with the support of the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police in their Operation Lifesaver. It's presented to us for our consideration by Chief Buds. During this week celebration and recognition of the need for safety, police officers from the Western Springs Department will be at all of the grade crossings, reminding folks of the need to practice safety around the crossings. This is very, very important. In Illinois, there were 25 people who were killed at the rail crossings and 29 seriously injured in 2017. And one particular unfortunate occurrence here in Western Springs. So that comes to us for our information and for purposes of conveying to the public the need to practice safety around the rail crossings. The second item comes to us in the way of a request for budgetary support from EMS. Chief Patrick Kenny has referred this matter for our attention. A request to purchase an automatic CPR device that is a result of a very extensive review and consideration, due diligence by Fire Marshal Kelly in his memorandum that is included in your packet. The purchase of this device is places a cost at a little over $14,000, which is a little less than the $5,000 that was already budgeted in the EMS capital budget for 2018. They're requesting our support. This advances from the committee with our recommendation that this advance for approval before the full board. And that's my report.
Thank you, Trustee Sipperman. And thank you for being a commuter town. I think it's very important that we have this railway safety outreach with our residents, and so I thank you, Chief Buds, for that. And then, of course, it's always good to have defibrillators and CPR devices, and an automatic one can just be that much easier to use in a pinch, and so glad to be able to supply that. Okay, moving on to General Government Committee. Trustee Timmick.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Just a couple items this evening. The first one is the refuse and recycling survey. The details of the survey or the results have not been shared with the broader board as of yet. This was discussed at the General Government Committee just before this meeting. So I'll give you some highlights. There's no action to be taken at this point from a board perspective. We received about 541 survey responses from residents. Everyone was eligible to go on and respond, so we did get 540 of those back. The feedback was, in general, very, I'll say, favorable, or, finding Republic, the current provider of our services, acceptable, and got actually some compliments in terms of the quality of service there. Around the ideas or some of the issues related to refuse pickup itself, sort of split in terms of what the residents would like to see moving forward in terms of size of containers, maintaining the bag and sticker concept as well. But it looks like, we have some ideas to work from there and take into consideration how we can maybe improve that service a little bit overall for the residents. There was a very strong anti-blue bag sentiment voiced in the survey. We did have a smaller group of folks come back and say they like the blue bags, mostly from senior citizens and folks that don't generate a lot of recyclables. They found it easier to manage and get it out to the curb for pickup and things like that. But generally, it does look like that for those that did respond, the blue bags were not a highly favorable option, and so we'll have some ideas around what we could do there from a container, and maybe even give the residents some options there so that there is ease of mobility and some different things like that. But basically, a lot of good information. I think it was an excellent survey. It was well crafted, and we did get a pretty decent response level. And so next steps is village staff will put some of these ideas together, reach out to the current provider of public services, and begin a dialogue with them on how we would see this moving forward. We do have the contract with them expiring here at the end of the year, so we do have some urgency in terms of potentially discussing an extension or something along those lines to maintain the service we have today for the residents, and then work to see how we can enhance it. So that was the survey results. The next one on the agenda mentioned a raffle that was to be considered for Nazareth. We're actually going to table this for the moment. After discussing in general government this evening, we believe there's more information required before we really can make any recommendations on what we want to do there. Okay. There's an additional item that wasn't on the agenda, and it's essentially a do-over. So back on the 20th of August, the board approved an ordinance to execute 5 loan agreements with the Illinois EPA. There also was a requirement that came in that to publish those loans and the notice of those loans in the paper within 10 days due to a publisher error that did not occur. So what will happen is we'll take action again on this on the 24th. The document will look exactly the same pretty much as what we saw back in August. It's just a matter of we have to do it over, and the publisher has already been contacted, and the severity of this has been explained to them so that we don't have a repeat in terms of the failure to publish, so we have to get these out. So that will take place on the 24th. And then the only other item was just coming out of general government is that we scheduled our next meeting, which is planned for the 2nd of October at 7 p.m. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Timick. Moving on to Planning and Zoning Committee, Trustee Terrell.
Thank you, President Gallagher. The first housekeeping, the draft downtown parking study is not going to be made available today. It will be brought out to us on the October 8th workshop meeting. The second matter is involves around a conditional use permit which is being sought by LADSI. What LADSI stands for is the LaGrange Area Department of Special Education. Specifically, what they're looking for is that there's property at 4300 Howard, which is the First United Methodist Church. And what LADSI would like to do is they would like a conditional use permit so that they can conduct classes in there. It's been my understanding that that's already happened. These classes are for 3 to 5-year-old children that are developmentally disabled in various forms. They do need a conditional use permit because the property as zoned is single-family residential. They've been conducting classes there for several years already without any sort of problems at all. They've done traffic studies. The children will be brought by buses. There'll be aides to help the children out of the buses and into these, what they're hoping to have is 3 classrooms. There's approximately, I think, 3 full-time teachers and 10 paraprofessionals that will assist the children. Again, the traffic studies have been done, that there'll be minimal impact. I think we have a witness here. Would you like to address us as to, if you came out here today, would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure.
Come up here, please.
My name's Ellie Ambula. I'm the executive director of LADSI. So I came before the zoning board about a month ago, just to share some information about our programming and how we use it's First United Methodist Church. There is 1 classroom on the main floor and 2 classrooms in their basement that we use, as Ms. Terrell said, for 3 to 5-year-olds with various developmental disabilities. We do have 3 teachers, technically 2.8, but we have a 5-day-a-week program that has a morning section and an afternoon section. We have 2 of those classrooms, and then we have a 4-day. We have it's kind of complicated. We have a speech language program that meets 2 times a week, in the morning and the afternoon, and we have a Monday, Wednesday section and a Tuesday, Thursday. The maximum amount of students this program would ever have in one morning or afternoon section would be approximately 20 to 25, and so. Many of the parents drive kids back and forth, but we do have Grand Prairie Transit delivering some students to and from. We do have a traffic plan that we adhere to, and we try to communicate as best as possible to our parents to adhere to as well. We did have one village resident that came to our zoning meeting saying that First United, as well as some Field Park parents, have some issues with following all the rules of the traffic plans at all times. So we have reinforced that this fall with our parents, and continue to want to work with residents and the police and the village to make sure that there aren't any serious traffic implications. But it's been a good location for us.
So these children are coming from, is it 15 different communities?
Really, that's a good question. How many communities? Lansing is 15-member districts, 13 elementaries. So they can come from Western Springs, LaGrange, but also as far away as Darien or Burr Ridge, Lyons, Riverside, North Riverside. So we have a number of different communities.
And these are providing education as best as can be for preschool, is it developmentally disabled individuals?
These students are entitled to a special education, and so they have a what's called an IEP that's written, and it recommends this programming. The students either have an autism spectrum disorder, or they have a speech-language impairment for these particular programs.
Okay, and as you said, you've been in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission. They had a unanimous that it should move forward to us, and I see no reason why we should give this anything other than a thumbs up when I think it's omnibus in 2 weeks.
We'll put it on the omnibus if anyone has any other further discussion on this. I think Lansing does wonderful work. They've been as part of our community, our education system for a long time, and meeting the special needs of these children is laudable. And I think on our end, we have thoroughly researched this subject, and we've gone through all the proper channels. So I see no reason not to put it on the omnibus.
Yeah, this was actually came before the Planning and Zoning Board back when I was on the board several years ago, and so it's been operating without issue. And
Right.
to your point, I think it provides an excellent service.
Yes, thank you.
I agree as well. Just a quick question, Jesse. How many kids are typically there at a time, and how does that compare with like people that I guess would be there for a service, for a Sunday morning service for the church?
I can't speak for the Sunday morning service. I don't have that information. I can tell you we have, in terms of adults that drive to it, we have probably in the neighborhood, it's probably in here somewhere, around 15 adults that are there. In addition to the teachers, the program for students with autism spectrum has a high staff-to-student ratio because of the kiddos' needs. So we will have as many as 4 or 5 adults in a classroom along with the teacher. And then there are itinerant staff that will come and go, so they're not there all day long necessarily.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Is that enrollment stable every year, about the same numbers?
It is pretty stable. We're limited a little bit by the size of the classrooms in the basement of the church. Those programs are where our autism programs are, and those technically can go up to 10 kids per classroom, but those space really doesn't allow for 10 kids for the programming. So we have 7 students in each classroom in the morning, and then the afternoon is pretty much our cap, and then the upstairs program up to 10.
And the kids go, after your program, they'll go into the public high school, public elementary school,
yeah, so
and then high school?
the kindergarten programming. Some of them will come back to their local school districts to receive their programming, and some of them will stay in LADSI programs that are located throughout our member districts.
And then high school?
And then high school, yep, either LT or Riverside, well, actually a number of different high schools. We'll send our kids to a lot of schools.
So you're the first chance that they get to receive some education.
Yeah, early childhood is really a really important capture for all students. So all along preschool is also really important for all kids, but particularly for kids with disabilities, it is the perfect time to address the needs.
Okay. Well, thank you for the good work you do, and the church should be commended as well for providing this to the community.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Other than that, President Gallagher, that would conclude my report.
Thank you, Trustee Terrell. Okay, moving on. Is there any other business to attend to this evening? Now then we'll move on to my report. You'll see in your packet that I have several reappointments to various boards and commissions. I want to thank all of these volunteers for their continued service to the village in these roles and in their capacities. It's much appreciated. So first would be a reappointment of Mitch Johnson as a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals for a 5-year term to expire in December 2022. Also, reappointment of Robert Baker as Chair of the Economic Development Commission for a 3-year term to expire in December 2020. Also, the reappointment of Doug DeRock as a member of the Economic Development Commission for a 3-year term to expire in December 2021. And finally, the reappointment of Al Fink as Chair of the Recreation Commission for a 3-year term to expire in July 2021. So if there's no objections, we'll put that on the omnibus for approval at our next meeting. And that concludes my report. Village Manager Velkme.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Yes, I have 2 items for tonight. One is on August 31st, I sent out an email where I talked about these platforms and also some of the 2019 budget. There I also wanted to talk about having a special session just an hour or so before the October 8th board meeting to discuss the strategic goals to see whether or not they are all something that we want to move forward with or not. And then also maybe there's something that we excluded last year that, for instance, the tollway, that will have an impact on our operations. So I was wondering if we could maybe meet at 6 o'clock or so, or 5:30. What is your preference? So.
Sorry, so
6 is better than 5:30.
6, that's fine. And we can have a light dinner there already.
Okay.
And,
On the 8th,
and
you're saying?
we'll,
On the
yes,
8th.
and so it'll be downstairs in the all-purpose room prior to this, so.
Is everyone available to attend?
Yes.
Okay.
Wonderful, thank you. Second item is with regard to the tennis courts at the Spring Rock Park. And my office and the village board, the trustees, I understand that you've received questions regarding the tennis courts in Spring Rock Park. And these are the ones that are very west of Burlington. They are 4 courts side by side. And the I-294 project requires the reconstruction of the existing bridge and the construction of a shoe-fly bridge, which is immediately adjacent to the courts. And there will be a construction road right next to it, so there will be trucks coming in and out of there. So the Park District, this is a Park District issue, they are working with the tollway to relocate the existing tennis courts. The existing tennis courts would be moved to Upper Spring Rock Park at the site of the current parking lot. And the parking lot would move to the site where the existing courts are right now. They believe that this would be a win-win for the residents because it would be safer to conduct a program there instead of right next to the construction area. And also, they would be able to build new courts. The lighting there is deteriorating, so that they would have new lighting there. And it's just simply safer to have it there. So. The Park District is holding a meeting tomorrow evening, and they just wanted to set the record straight that they are not losing the courts. The courts will just be moved up to Spring Rock Park. So that was asked of me to report on. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there was just a little bit of confusion about what was happening there, so.
And the idea is that it would still stay a 4-court pack.
Yes.
It will be 4 courts. They won't be side by side. They'll be 2 and 2.
And the tennis courts that are along the street there, closer to the playground, those will remain there?
Correct.
Okay.
Those will remain, yes.
During construction and then after construction?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge. The Park District also has an engineer that's looking at this. They have to do testing, whether or not this is even possible, soil testing, boring. And they also may need some permits from the MWRD, so.
Tollway going to pay for all of this?
That is an agreement between the tollway and the Park District. I am not privy to the details.
So where is the site exactly? Sorry, which parking lot is going away?
The upper one, next to the baseball courts there.
The Little
courts,
League
fields,
parking lot.
yes.
Okay.
By the roller.
So you would
Gotcha.
have to walk up, but it would be even safer. I know that some people have complained that the cars are racing up and down and people are crossing by the tennis courts, and so.
Okay, so they just move south and a little bit east of where they are now,
Correct,
right?
yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Will there be an opportunity for the village to participate in this meeting tomorrow?
Tomorrow evening, yes,
Okay.
if you would like to.
Well, I wondered if village staff will be attending that meeting as well.
Tracy?
Yes,
Okay.
I always attend the park board meetings.
Right.
It's a public meeting, so anybody is welcome to attend. It'll be held at 4400 Central in the garages there, the Park District garages.
It would appear to me that the sentiment that has been expressed would favor building the new tennis courts before they build the parking lot. In other words, tear down the old tennis courts.
Timing is an
After
issue.
they-
You're talking timing,
Right.
yes. That's definitely in part of the discussion.
Right.
And what is the time frame for this project? Like, would they do this next summer? Or, because
My
I know
underst-
they're planning to start on the shoe fly next fall, correct?
Right. I believe the timing is such that a year from now, they'll start with the shoe fly, as you said. So next summer, summer of 2019, tennis will not be impacted. So we'll have the 4 west courts as they are, as well as the 3 east courts, which are not being impacted. So a year from now, when the project starts, that the west courts, when they close, will be the staging area or whatever ends up happening with them. And in the meantime, then new courts would be built so they can open up in 2020 with the next season of tennis.
Okay.
So in the fall of 2019, maybe after the...
Yeah, in the fall or the next spring of 2020.
Okay. Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Village Manager Velkney. Village Attorney Jerusik.
Just briefly, just a reminder that the Illinois Municipal League Conference is coming up on September, it actually starts September 20th, but the elected officials' presentations are on the 21st and 22nd. I handed out my my PowerPoint. I'm speaking on TIF, updates and techniques, strategies for getting the most out of your TIF, and just FYI, the Foxford project in the downtown TIF project is covered in a couple of slides as a example of how to maximize TIF increment to make a pay-as-you-go TIF viable and productive.
Wonderful, thank you. I know Trustee Hansen, you'll be attending the
I will be
conference?
on Friday, the
Okay.
21st.
I'll be there Thursday and Friday. Anybody else?
No, yeah, out of town. I'll be out
Okay.
of town as well.
Yeah. It's a good conference. I've gone most of the years, and I find it worthwhile. There's always a good subject, no matter what hour of the day, so I'm looking forward to it. If you are available, please, make time to attend. Okay. Then, in that case,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
thank you, Trustee Timmons.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Allen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ladies and gentlemen, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much. So we will delay the review.